Good bright and early morning from Riga, the so far really stunning capital of Latvia. And I suppose I should maybe also be saying Dobre Utra because I am back in the former USSR. Latvia is the 6th former Soviet republic that I'll have visited over the course of this year, and we're not quite done yet. But anyway, what we're going to do, because it's really early and I've just gotten off of an 18-hour bus journey from Berlin, never do that again, let's hit these streets. You know, normally when I arrive somewhere new, I have it all planned out, pretty much down to a T. But in this case, I knew I was going to be arriving early and, well, I can't check into my hotel for another several hours, so I figured we would just get lost in the city, and what a pleasant surprise this park is. So, you know, one of the things that I've been most curious about exploring in Riga is the notion of language. And I say that because when the Soviet Union was dissolving at the end of the 1980s, early 1990s, well, the population of Latvia was about 35% ethnic Russian. It's dropped now, but it's still around, well, almost probably a quarter of the population. And in Riga, it's said that something like 35% of the population remains Russian today. So that really begs a question. How much Russian is spoken? How much Latvian is spoken? And also, it had really profound implications when the Soviet Union dissolved because, well, a newly, independent Latvian state was not necessarily keen to grant everybody citizenship. So, for example, those who ended up arriving in Latvia after 1940, when the country became part of the USSR, they were not necessarily guaranteed citizenship rights. So you do have, even to this day, quite a few Russians. I mean, I think the majority now do have Latvian citizenship, but a large proportion who still effectively are stateless. Well, one of the most iconic landmarks in all of Riga is the House of the Blackheads. And here you can actually get a sense of the fact that it was completely built up once more from scratch. It says it's initially from 1334, but reconstructed in 1999. And it said that the first Christmas tree in the world was actually put here back in the year 1510. So in 1914, when the First World War began, the Russian Empire found itself facing off against the German Empire. And in 1915, here in Latvia, something known as the Latvian Riflemen was created. This was a military force that was supposed to defend Latvia and by extension Russia from that German invasion. Well, the thing is, in 1917, the Bolshevik Revolution takes place. And after the Bolshevik Revolution, the communists have as one of their key desires and goals ending Russia's participation in the war. So in 1918, the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk is signed, and this actually pulls Russia out of the war, but at a really tremendous cost. Russia has to cede a huge part of its territory, including all of modern-day, well, you could say Ukraine, Belarus, and the Baltic states, as well as Poland. So by early 1918, Latvia is effectively ceded to the German Empire. The thing is, the German Empire does not actually last long itself, and Germany it loses the First World War within a few months. So the political situation changes dramatically after this. You basically have a situation where, number one, the Latvian Riflemen had continued to exist, but they become split between the Red Riflemen and the White Riflemen. And I say this because it's also reflective of, the civil war that engulfs Russia between the Reds and the Whites, and also in Latvia, you have the proclamation late in 1918 of an independent, you could say bourgeois Latvian republic. After this, you get the proclamation of the Latvian Socialist Soviet Republic. And I say all of that to say this, that right here in the heart of Riga, right behind me, you have what's known today as the Latvian Riflemen Monument. But back in 1971, when it was first erected, it was called the Latvian Red Riflemen Monument. And that's because it aimed to basically link the period of Soviet power in 1918 and 1919 with the, resumption, you could say, of Soviet power from 1940 And of course, as you would anticipate, because we are, after all, in the Baltics, they have something here dedicated to the victims of communism, the victims of Soviet power. If you've watched my video from Tallinn earlier this year, well, I don't think I'll repeat some of the same points I made in that video. Yeah, go and watch that video. And actually, the building that houses the Museum of Occupation dates back to 1971. It was completed for the 100th anniversary of Vladimir Ilyich Lenin. Well, let me just say, it is significantly colder here in Riga than it was in Berlin when I left. And I'm not sure if the clothing that I brought for this particular trip is going to be enough, but we're going to try to make do. At least the sun is shining, and it's absolutely stunning as well with the leaves and all of that. Ah, man. Well, there's few things more Soviet than a good old trolley bus. Where are you going? All right, so let's bring it back to the year 1905. 1905 was the dry run for the Russian revolutions of 1917. And I say that because, well, on January 9th in St. Petersburg, a few hundred people were probably killed by the forces of the Tsar. And this had a profound impact on cities all across the empire. And here in Riga, in the subsequent days, there were strikes, there were demonstrations, and on January 13th, well, demonstrators ended up confronting Tsarist forces here along the Daugava River. And probably more than 70 of them ended up being killed, or it was said that some ended up, well, basically drowning in the river. Very horrific events. But nonetheless, marked also a turning point, I guess you can say, in the consciousness of the Latvian masses and the Russian masses, you could say, by extension. And this is what I've been looking forward to, the monument in memory of those who fell in 1905. And stylistically quite similar, in a way anyway, to the one that we saw earlier this year in Tallinn. I say that because both of them simply have the year 1905 written on it. And here you can see, as I've noticed at some of the other memorials and landmarks, that it's written in Latvian. It's written in English, of course. That's the way I can understand it. And also in Russian, in the Cyrillic alphabet. Well, the question is, how do you like your wedding cake? This is probably the most Soviet landmark in Riga. The Academy of Sciences, which goes back to 1946, but the building was constructed between 1951 and 1961. And you know, there's also a panoramic view of Riga from the 17th floor, but I don't think I'm going to do that right now because I have my massive bag with me. And actually, the place where I'm staying is also supposed to have a pretty impressive panoramic view. You know, it's funny, I actually just sent a friend of mine a photo of this building with no context at all, and his response was, "Oh shit, you're in Moscow?" And that's because, well, the building does resemble a lot of others that would have been built during the Soviet period all across the Union, and in particular, I guess you could say Moscow State University. But this one, I guess, a little bit smaller. For me, it also resembles the Empire State Building, a little bit anyway. Well, been walking around Riga for the good part of 5 hours, and I definitely needed it after that extremely long bus journey from Berlin, 18 hours. But nonetheless, I'm starting to flag a little bit, so let's see if we can get checked into our hotel. It is a little bit early. The thing is, the hotel is, as you could imagine, or would imagine, quintessentially Soviet. Well, sort of. I mean, the thing is, this is the Hotel Latvia. It goes back to 1976. That's when they finished construction on it. At the time, it was run by the Soviet tourism agency Intourist. We've been in some of those before. And it only opened in 1979 to tourists. It's been nicely refurbished. Now it's run by Radisson. Let's see what it has to offer. And yeah, fingers crossed I can actually get checked in, because tired beyond belief at this point. Well, I have to say, the lobby and the first floor in general, or the ground floor, depending on where you're from, if you say ground floor or first floor, it's huge. It is absolutely massive. I mean, can I even find the elevator? And here it is, home sweet home for the next 2 nights in Riga. And my room is number 6316, but it's on the 3rd floor, which is really confusing. Hopefully later on I remember that I'm on the 3rd and not the 6th floor. But yeah, basically it doesn't have any of that Soviet appeal from back in the day because the entire hotel was renovated between 2000 and 2006. So a very different experience than, for example, I don't know, the Hotel Uzbekistan or the Hotel Kazakhstan. This I wouldn't know, if I didn't read about it, that it was something dating back to the Soviet period. But anyway, I don't really want to complain because, it's really, really nice for a couple of nights here in Riga. So I think what we'll do is explore the rest of the hotel after a little bit of a recharge. All right, so let's head up to the 26th floor. Wait, can we get to the 26th floor? All right, here we are. It's actually a completely different elevator to get up to the 26th floor. And this hotel, like the Viru in Tallinn, it actually did have a KGB listening station within it, which I believe was also, if not on the 26th floor, pretty damn high. Oh, check this out. Wow. And this is exactly why I didn't want to go up the Academy of Sciences earlier, because I was thinking this might do it. I am afraid of heights, though. Shit. Okay, let me just pretend like this is not happening. So I might come back later and maybe enjoy a drink or something up here, but yeah, check it out. You can see off in the distance the Academy of Sciences, and then a bit further the Riga TV tower, which is also from the Soviet period, but unfortunately it's under renovations at the moment, so I'm not sure that I'll necessarily be going there. But yeah, what a view from up here. Well, Soviet functionalism from 1977. The Dailies, I believe I'm saying that correctly, theater. Well, I actually passed this building on the way here, and it was on the list. I didn't realize that I was standing right next to it as I was making my way down towards the theater. This is the former headquarters of the KGB here in Riga. Well, maybe the most recognizable landmark in all of Riga is the Freedom Monument right behind me. And the Freedom Monument dates back to 1935. So this was the period of so-called independent Latvia, when you had that bourgeois republic in power. Now, when the Soviets basically came to power here in 1940 once again, and then from 1944, after the overthrow of the Nazi dictatorship, well, then you had a situation where they didn't quite know how to deal with the Freedom Monument. And it was decided ultimately to leave it rather than have it demolished or something of this nature, which was seen as maybe being too antagonistic towards Latvian nationalists and would have had a lot of blowback. Well, I always get excited when I see the year 1970 or that decade mentioned, because it means that we must be looking at something from the USSR. Ah man, well, it's getting dark super early these days, and daylight savings time just ended 2 days ago, so I guess winter is approaching. With that being said, I gotta start getting up early on this trip in order to film as much as possible because, yeah, basically right now it's not even 5 o'clock and it's pretty much pitch black outside already. Well, good bright and early morning once more from Riga, day 2 of 2. And hitting the streets of the old town super early. It's very, very quiet, as you can see. And yeah, the thing is, I knocked out significantly more yesterday than I anticipated, so today it's going to be a little bit of a light one. Well, yesterday we walked alongside the Daugava River, and today we'll do something a little bit different. We'll actually cross it. Alright, so as we're making our way, it's about a 45-minute walk from my hotel to where I'm trying to get to. I figured I would just tell you a little bit about exactly what I'm looking for. So we're heading to a place called Victory Park, which initially I thought was named such because of the Soviet Red Army victory in World War II. However, the name of the park actually goes back to the 1920s, and it was named for the Bourgeois Republic or Bourgeois Army's victory over what was called the West Russian Volunteer Army back in 1919. When Soviet Riga and Soviet Latvia came into being, much later on, they decided to keep the name, but basically change, well, you could say the rationale behind it. Yeah, you would really have no idea that something so significant used to be here until just a few short years ago. This was the site of the Soviet War Memorial, which dated back to 1985. But with the, you could say, kicking of the Ukraine war into much higher gear in 2022, the Latvian authorities decided to have the memorial demolished. And this was, of course, very controversial because, as I mentioned, Latvia and Riga in particular still has a particularly high proportion of ethnic Russians living in it. So the ethnic Russians are much more inclined to view the Red Army in that particular period more favorably than a lot of the ethnic Latvians are. Well, look, you actually do have some information boards about the fact that the memorial used to be here, so at least there's that. And that's the way that it used to look. And this is how it looked when it was being demolished in 2022. Well, I'm not sure if you remember my episode from Tallinn. If you haven't seen it, go and watch that. But yeah, there I visited what I called a condemned memorial from the Soviet period. Condemned in the sense that it's just been left to rot. But they've gone significantly further here in Riga by actually demolishing it. So in light of the fact that the Soviet War Memorial has been demolished, I thought it was worth coming here to what's known as the Riga Ghetto and Latvian Holocaust Museum, so we can get a little sense of why the Soviet Red Army was fighting during this period, and the Allied forces more generally. So not long after Nazi German forces occupied Latvia and the Baltics in 1941, the Riga Ghetto was set up, and about 35,000 people would be held here over the course of, well, roughly the next 2 years. The thing is, though, in November and December of 1941, over the course of 2 days, most of Latvia's Jews were killed. Around 24,000 were said to have been killed in what was known as the Rumbula massacre, basically in or on the way to a forest outside of Riga. Well, check out Riga Central Station, dating back, this building at least, to 1960, so quintessentially Soviet. It's a bit of a letdown, to be honest. Where's the murals? Where's the mosaics? Where's the art? Well, we can't come to Riga and not visit the largest market and bazaar in all of Europe, the Riga Central Market, so let's check it out real quick. Well, you are seeing correctly. We are back at the Academy of the Sciences. And not because the panoramic view from the hotel wasn't incredible, but because I got a little bit of extra time and I figured, well, why not check out the view from up top on the 17th floor? Alright, so gotta take the elevator to the 15th floor, and then apparently walk 2 flights of stairs up to the 17th. Whew, getting excited. And at least I can't see anything within this elevator, so, no fear of heights yet. And in the distance, you can see the Hotel Latvia, so from one panoramic observation deck to another. Oh man, the views from here are definitely breathtaking, and I'm really glad that I took the opportunity to come here on my second and last day in Riga.